Good morning, Intenders.
Good morning.
Welcome back to Morning Intentions. Today is Friday, November 7th. We're just going to kick things off right away because, Annette, you shared right at the end of yesterday's episode that you wanted to know more about what I mean by not having a good enough why.
Yes, because when you said, well, your why might not be good enough, I thought, what is a good why and what is a bad why? Obviously, I have my ideas based on last month. A quote unquote good why is one where we understand our inherent worth and all of that. But what do you mean by a bad why? And I was thinking, so please address this also in your answer. When we think about that never enough cycle where we go from striving to exhaustion, from validation, and then we still feel empty. Striving, exhaustion, validation, still feel empty. Well, that's what happens when we lose touch with our why. I get all of that, but I really want you to illuminate for all of us what a good why is and what do you mean by a why that's not good enough.
So I'm judging good why and bad why, and it's going to be something that's individual to everybody. I'm judging that based on my inner ugh, that inner feeling that I have. So when I write out my why or I put words to it, I can just tell that's not a really good why. Like, I'm pushing myself, I'm striving and grasping for a certain feeling or a certain experience, because we all know, as we talked about last month, I have more of a feelings to-do list, where you have more of a task to-do list. So I'm looking for a certain feeling. So when I exercise, what is that feeling that I'm going to have because of the exercise? I love running. The only thing that I know that gives me a specific feeling.
So is that to use your words, good enough why?
Honestly, no, it's not, because then what happens is I push myself. I exercise when I'm too tired. I probably should be sleeping instead, or just reading a book or something more relaxing. So it becomes like, well, if I'm chasing a feeling, that's honestly not a good why, because the feeling is fleeting. If I'm saying I can only feel good if I'm doing something specific, what if it turns out that specific feeling is not even healthy for me, or it pushes me way too far and it's like I'm actually hurting myself rather than helping?
This is an important concept, because many of us have talked ourselves into a why that seems acceptable. So let's say you're in a situation where you've had no boundaries and you don't know boundaries, or you know boundaries, you've learned some about boundaries, and you've just been in this relationship. It could be a colleague from work. It could be how you show up at work. And you know what boundaries are, and it's very, very hard to set boundaries in this certain setting. I know I have been guilty of talking myself into saying why I don't really need to have boundaries in this situation. And my why would be, well, I want to be supportive and I want to contribute. And all of that is masking my not wanting or not knowing how or not feeling that I can have boundaries in this certain situation.
Right. It might be that self-criticism masquerading as motivation. Well, if I don't do this, then I'm not a good friend.
Yes.
And that's honestly not a good enough why. We can go back and say, well, I want to be helpful. I love and care about this person. It's part of my top 5 values. If it's something that's healthy for us and good to do, we can probably find a better why. Or maybe there's a deeper why that we can explore more. But if it's kind of just a surface level, well, this is what I should be doing. If it has a should, if it has a must, a have to, or an ought to, in the end, it's not going to be a good enough why.
And you can tell that by that inner ugh.
Absolutely. And that's where I said at the beginning of this episode, it's such an individual experience. I can't look at something you're doing in it and say, well, that's not a good enough why. If you put words to it, you'll know. If you write it out in your journal, if you just start thinking about it and pondering it and meditating on it, I bet when we're all honest with ourselves, like you would be in that situation, you would know pretty quickly if your why is a good enough why. And the reason this is so important to me is because we can always come up with a reason for anything. We can come up with the most I'm trying to say this in a compassionate
so
way.
I think what you're saying is we can all use mental gymnastics to justify anything.
Thank you. That's a much better way to put it than I was thinking of. We can always come up with a why. Always.
But is it a valid why? Is it a why that is authentic and true?
A why that reflects our value.
Yes. Okay, so then I have to tell you about an experience that I had. And this is one where I wanted to share because it's a little bit, like you said, it's a little bit embarrassing what you shared the other day. And so I'm going to share something that's a little embarrassing too.
You don't have to just because I did.
Well, I want to because I want to show and maybe model for all of us that when we start looking at what is our why, it may be difficult. We may not like what we see. So I was going down memory lane and I was thinking about why I did certain things. I found a thread that was common to a number of not really relationships, but more how I showed up in relationships and what I did. And this is what it was. Like all of us, we have people that think we're cool and like us and people that don't really like us. I mean, that's people, different people are going to appeal to different people. But I think I have been motivated, and my why was that I was trying to prove to myself that I wasn't as bad as other people thought I was. And that has been a huge motivator, especially in my younger years. I'm going to make sure my home looks a certain way so that people don't think I'm as bad as I think that they think that I am. I'm going to do XYZ so that I can prove to myself that I'm not as bad as people think that I am.
So is this a take on external validation becomes the metric or the scoreboard?
Yes, completely. But it also, I've been thinking about this. This is also, well, everybody makes an identity for everybody. And I was making somebody's identity that they had made for me the truth. So the story that I was telling myself is that, well, if I'm just good enough, I can prove to myself, and this was unconscious. This is what I'm saying is we may have to, wow, this is pretty deep work. We may have to get to that stage because it wasn't that I was out to impress anyone. Really, what the truth is I was trying to prove to myself that these identities that others had created for me, they weren't true. I'm going to use an example. So when I was young, I was so shy, like so shy.
I'm just going to say it because I'm sure everybody else is thinking it. That is not believable.
I know.
You are such a talker. You and I talk all day, every day. You have the gift of gab. You can talk to anyone. So the thought of you being shy, I've heard this before, and I still can't believe it. I trust you, of course, but there's like, huh?
But you know how I got
shy?
over being shy? This is what I'm sharing with you.
Really? Okay, keep going.
So people, when I was in school, elementary school, middle school, even a lot of high school, they would make comments about me being shy. And so I started it was kind of toward the end of high school, actually. I started forcing myself to talk to everyone. And I love talking to people now, but it was more, I'm going to start talking so that I can prove to myself I'm not who these people say I am. So what was my why? I was living from the outside in. Everyone else had this opinion about me. So I was going to prove to myself, well, no, I'm not that. No, I'm not that.
Because you could have just said, let them.
Yeah, I could have just said, I'm shy. Now, I happen to be very grateful that I did that. And I would have to admit also that for many years when I was getting out of my shyness, it felt fake inside of me because I was very, very used to being shy. Even if I take a class now, though, still, if I take a class, I don't say a word. I do not say a word. Maybe that part of me still exists because I will not say, if I'm in a classroom, I might ask a question, but I wouldn't ever be the one who starts sharing a lot. That would just not be me. So
it's so funny because I was also called shy during those years in my life, and that never changed. Like, I didn't feel the need to go out and prove that, no, I'm not shy, or to prove to myself or prove to anyone. I'm still pretty shy. Well, see, and I'm okay with that.
And this is where I think when our why is from the outside in, and we're living from the outside in, we lose touch with who we truly are. So when I'm trying not to be shy in those years gone by, I know that feeling of not really knowing who I am in this situation. Now, at this stage of my life, we're talking maybe 45 years ago, right? Now I enjoy people, and I also am not that social. So the people that I'm with, whether it is a client or a friend or someone even at the grocery store, I do enjoy a conversation, but I don't live a real social life where I'm involved in groups and committees, and that shyness still is there. And I'm honoring that. I think as I get older, I'm honoring that. And I know this experience of losing touch with who I am because I'm thinking that, well, how I really am isn't so cool, so I have to change. And my why would be, well, I want people to like me, or I want to be okay. And the truth of it is what's my why now? My why for talking now is I enjoy people. My why for not being very social now is because I also don't like groups, and I also don't want to be social. And I'm finally okay with it.
And then those turn into good whys. So it started out as a bad why, or a not good enough why,
or an inauthentic why.
I like that even better.
And, from the outside in is going to be...
I always go to the black and white, good and bad.
See, and that's where I wanted to really talk about this, because when you said, well, not a why that's not good enough, it's like, kind of, those were kind of like fingernails on a chalkboard to me, because I don't want it to be not good or bad. I want it to be, it's more inauthentic. It's more living from the outside in.
That's what I mean by that. I use the words I talk to myself with. And when I say it's not a good enough why, it means either find a better one or change what you're doing. And so, that's how I talk to myself. And thank you for sharing your story, because I think we can all fall into a situation like that, where we're trying to prove that someone else is wrong, even if it's just to ourselves. We're going out into the world and we're going and doing, but our whys are inauthentic. They're not healthy for us. And then that becomes the fuel to either find a better why to exist within the situation, one that is healthy and authentic, or we can say, this is inauthentic. What's actually the authentic way I can live my life, like you have done?
And we do have that inner guidance system. And that's why I'm so pleased that you did say, we're going to feel it. We're going to feel the
will
inner,
know.
we're going to feel like we're being fake. We're going to feel something. We're not going to feel peace.
That's right. You will know. So our intention for today and this weekend is, as I go about my day, I will check in with myself. Is my why authentic or inauthentic? As I go about my day, I will check in with myself. Is my why authentic or inauthentic? We're building awareness here. So if you find it's inauthentic, that's okay. It's good to know so you can make a better decision next time. Thank you so much for joining us today and this week. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you Monday.
See you then.